Joining us now, Stuart Varney from the Fox Business Network, host of Varney and Company. Boy, I'm telling you, you can find out what's going on right there on that program. How are you, Stuart?
I'm very well, Brian. Thanks for a great introduction.
We're gonna have a conversation in a moment about something that is it's sort of out there in the business world. It has to do with Google. You know, Google is coming up with a car, and the car doesn't have a steering wheel or a brake. You basically get into the car, and it takes you where you want to go, and you have absolutely no control over the vehicle. Are you ready for your Google car, Stuart Varney?
Is Google ready for the lawyers, which will swarm all over the Google car? No. Well, look, it's a concept car. I've seen the video. I've heard all about it. And you're right, there's no pedals, there's no brakes, there's no steering wheel. You sit in the back, and you're transported, so to speak. I think this is a very, very interesting concept, and I think that's the way that we are going to go. Look, it's many years down the road before you've got a highway system complete with driverless cars. I mean, that's a decade away, surely, or at least 5 years, surely. But the concept has been planted, and I support that kind of futuristic, look-ahead kind of thing.
But can you let go, though, and just leave it in? You trust the mechanical device to get you there safely?
I think we will eventually, yes. For certain routes, certain people, on certain roads, I think it's going to come. Look, I'm one of those old-fashioned kind of guys who says, oh, that's an interesting idea, I'll never touch it, I'm not interested. But, you know, I said that about smartphones. I said that about my iPhone. I said that about Netflix. I said that about streaming. And I do it all. 6 months down the road, I do it. I think maybe the same is true of the Google car. Go for it, boys, you know. Look, it's a great idea. They think they can make money out of it. They're an ever-expanding company that wants to grab a piece of the future. Go for it, Google.
Well,
in favor.
Stuart Varney, you said that about Netflix and all of those other things you just listed. Did you also say it about Uber? Uber, which hit the scene just a couple of years ago as an alternative to the taxi service, it's now worth $17 billion. Talk about meeting a demand with a supply.
Larry, I think this is one of the major business stories of the day, and I'm talking about the sharing economy. I'm talking about disruptive companies which break down barriers and murder established industries. Now, you focused in on Uber, quite rightly. 10 days ago, Uber was worth $10 billion. Last Friday, that had moved up to $12 billion, and by Tuesday, it had gained another $5 billion and gone to $17 billion.
Wow.
I know of car companies which have lost a third of their drivers to Uber. They're just breaking down the established car service companies because it's part of this sharing economy. Look at Airbnb. They will let, on the Internet, you can rent out a room in your apartment. So
right.
You serve as a mini hotel. You're sharing your living space on the Internet. You can share a bathroom. You can rent out your bathroom on the Internet.
Yeah.
There's countless examples.
And what's happening in New York with Airbnb is also happening here in Washington with Uber, and that is the government is trying to get involved and mess it up, aren't
they? Yeah, exactly. The regulators are always late to the game. Private enterprise breaks down barriers, introduces something which is wildly popular and brand new, and in come the established authorities, that would be the taxi companies. They trashed an Uber competitor over in London. The establishment taxi service trashed an Uber competitor, but another taxi-sharing service, because that's the establishment fighting against the upstart newcomers who are popular.
You talk about disruptive technologies that come in and change the dynamic. I mean, many people look at what's happened, as you said, with Netflix and streaming. One of the things I noticed is that Apple has purchased Beats, and apparently part of the deal has to do with the fact that Beats now has a music streaming part of its business that it's just now developing. I mean, what's behind this Apple Beats merger?
I think you've got to look further into the background to figure out what's going on here. Apple is buying Beats for $3 billion. They're not buying the headset company. They're not buying that. Well, they are, but that's not what they're buying.
That's not what they really want. Yeah.
They're not just buying the streaming service from Beats, which only began in January of this year. I think what they're really buying is a guy called Jimmy Iovine. Now, he's a real power in the music industry, and he comes with Beats. So Apple essentially has bought Jimmy Iovine. Now, that's a very
What do
big
they
deal.
get for that?
Well, I'm sorry?
What can he bring to the mixture?
Oh, he's got every contact under the sun in the music business. And now he's with Apple, and all of those contacts and all of those bands, that music, comes through him to Apple. I mean, it's a pretty big price to pay, $3 billion for one guy, but I think that's what's behind this deal.
Interesting.
Can I ask you, this is kind of off the beaten path, but you're always good to go in strange places. Ava Longoria, famous actress, lovely woman, great spokesperson.
I like her.
Brian stands behind no man in his love for Ava Longoria.
She comes up about to my waist.
A couple years ago, she partnered with Morton Steakhouse and opened a female-oriented steakhouse in Vegas.
Gotta love that.
You think it's a good idea, and women are going to Vegas a lot for bachelorette parties? Well, it died a slow, ugly death. It is out of business now. It's closed. What does this tell us about the restaurant business and what appeals to women?
Come on, let's get straight at it, shall we? And I'm going to ask you a question. Is it a sexist assumption if I make the assumption that men are more interested in steak than women?
Well, I can tell you that if it is, there will be a blog post written about what you just said in about 5 minutes.
No, I only asked the question.
Yeah.
Can I be put in the public stockade for asking a
Right.
question?
Is it a war on women to say, you know what, maybe women don't like steakhouses as much as men?
I didn't say that. I think you just said that.
Oh, so the blog post will be written about me. But it is interesting as you know, the restaurant business obviously is a very tough business to get into. Morton certainly knows how to sell steaks. They specifically, the restaurant was called She, and they specifically tried to target the female audience, and it was a big bust.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting development. And, you know, I'm lost for words.
All right, Stuart.
You know
All
I
right.
am.
I hear you. Meanwhile, do you have any commentary on the big World Cup coming up here? I know that you were raised in a nation that called football something that obviously is not football. But the World Cup, is Brazil going to be ready, and is there going to be some ugliness down there with all the protests?
Yeah,
yeah, that's a sort of a lingering cloud over this World Cup. But look, I don't know how it's going to turn out. I think the soccer is going to be absolutely fantastic. It begins June the 12th, which is exactly 2 weeks from now, I think it is.
I'm already starting I'm fired up. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, look, I live and work in Manhattan, and I know that come June the 12th, you're going to have every single bar in Manhattan with huge TV screens, and you're going to have thousands of Latin Americans, Europeans, and Americans crowding the bars looking at the game.
You know, I'm not the kind of guy who you would normally think would really be into soccer, but I think I have the experience of many parents. When your kids start playing soccer, you get interested in the game, and you want to watch.
I mean, if the U.S. team gets out of its group, gets into the quarterfinals, I think that gives a huge boost to soccer domestically in the United States. And I think they might just do it. They're in a tough group, but they could do it.
I like the World Cup, but I think we can all agree that we prefer football over football.
Football.
I have no comment on that whatsoever.
All right. Hey, listen, Stuart, always a pleasure,
Stuart.
buddy.
Thank you, gentlemen. See you later.